Hey, this is Brian Kachejian from ClassicRockHistory.com. Today I have with me Tony and Miles from the band Fastball, one of my favorite bands. I became a big fan of the group back in the 90s when I heard the song The Way on the radio. I thought it was such a killer tune, and I've been buying their albums ever since. So, Tony, Miles, thanks. Thanks for hanging out today.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
So, you have a brand new album coming out. It's your ninth studio album called Sonic Ranch. And the album was recorded at Sonic Ranch Studios, which is a pretty impressive studio. Or I should say set of studios, right?
Yeah, there's a few different rooms at that place, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, basically, near the Mexican border. By the closest city is El Paso, probably about 55 miles away, and it's just real isolated. But once you're there and you got supplies, you might want to bring some supplies. But they take care of you pretty well. They feed you. You got a nice uh, place to stay. They have really nice like cabanas where you can stay. You get your own room. And then they have communal meals. So in the morning you have breakfast, always a Mexican breakfast, which is fantastic if you don't know.
They have like a resident chef, at work.
Yeah, the ladies, the senoras who work there, yeah. And they cook lunch and everything, and they have it ready for you when you come in for lunch, and then they leave a dinner for us in the evening, which we can either come and meet. It's usually ready anytime we need it, and a couple of bottles of wine. And who knows, we might go back in the studio after dinner and do more stuff, which was the
Well,
case more than a few times on these sessions.
well, anybody who knows musicians knows one of the ways to keep musicians happy is to keep them fed, right? And have the drinks flowing. And you're going to get better stuff when you have food. There's nothing worse than
Foods
play.
for sure. Yeah. I don't like to work hungry. I
There's
don't like,
nothing worse than playing a gig and you didn't eat, or it's a long gig and you're not fed, or you
Yeah,
know,
that's a rookie mistake. We don't ever do that. Our band never does that. It's like you've got to time everything for the show, like your consumption. You also don't want to be scarfing down food 2 minutes before you're about to walk out.
true.
So you kind of gotta structure everything so that you're digested, Sometimes it's unavoidable. Most of the time, though, I think everybody in the band has an internal clock that's going according to downbeat. When are we going on? And everyone takes their own physiology into account and just says, "Okay, I need to eat now.
Yeah.
So I feel good when I get out there."
well, now there's a difference between working in a studio recording and playing live, and a lot of guys don't like to eat before they play live. Is that how you feel, or you want to
No,
be fed?
I have had it happen where maybe I ate the wrong thing, like something with a bunch of carbohydrate that's gonna leave you in the middle of
Yeah, there's nothing worse.
about like a 90-minute show. I mean, there's nothing worse than being stuck and starting to hit that wall where you're like, oh my God, I am starving. But that's only happened to me once or twice, and it's never happened to me with fastball. It's happened to me in other scenarios. Uh, and I try to avoid that at all costs, like whatever it takes to avoid that.
Sure. I
Because
mean,
it, yeah, go ahead.
well, starting out, did you guys work clubs? Did you do bars
Mhm.
and stuff?
We do that
So,
now.
a lot of those places don't always have the greatest bathrooms. And
No, there's a whole host of things that come into account. Like where are you going, where's the restroom? All those things matter, but all those things you get so used to it that you don't even really think about it that much. It's just part of. I played in a band for a while with a bunch of other people, and there was a guy in the band who, after the show, he knew the schedule, and we were headed back to where we were staying, and he's like, I need something to eat. You got to pull over. And that wasn't part of the plan. And I'm like, no one else in this entire band, it was a big band, needs to eat. And we were all on stage the whole time. This guy was only on stage for like two songs. I'm like, I can't believe that you didn't take care of this yourself. That's
Yeah.
your own personal, like our band runs so well. No one ever has to stop for anything ever. Like, hey guys, could you pull over? I'm starving. Like that never happens. Everybody takes care of themselves. And the band, when we get in a van or something, it's just to get from point A to point B, usually. Very rarely do we have to like, make a special stop or something.
Well, that's all the behind the scenes stuff that people don't
Yeah,
see. It's part of being a pro, you know,
that's right.
making a living as a musician. Um, Now, was there any reason why you picked Sonic Studios? Why you
We
went there?
we'd been out there before just to check it out, and it almost looked like a cool place to work. But then really the deciding factor was David Garza, who's an old friend and who's a great, fantastic musician. He loves working there. He works there all the time. So he wanted to work there. It seemed like a good time to give it a whirl.
Now that place has a Nev board that was used to record a lot of those legendary Motown songs. Do you hear the difference when you record on a board like that as opposed to
We're
digital
not,
recording?
that's why we go to studios like that, because we're not really engineers. We have faith in the engineers that our producers choose to work with. We like working with engineers, but that are skilled, but the skills that we're looking for as a band are usually in the rate at which they work, the speed. We like to do things quickly, and we don't like a lot of technical snafus getting in the way of like a vibe that we're doing. On the other hand, we also trust the ears of some of these experts because they've done deep listening all their lives. That's their career. And I mean, we like songs and we like music. I like things that sound good, and I think I have good ears enough to know what sounds pretty good. But, you know, I don't know about telling the difference between a Neve or an SSL or, what have you. I do know that I trust the people who work at Sonic Ranch, and they have excellent equipment, and they have excellent staff who knows how to operate all that stuff.
So it's more of the human aspect of it that
It's a collective effort. It's a collective art form when you make recorded music. Some people might, you know, dismiss it and say, oh, just throw up some mics and play live and blah, blah, blah. And all that's great. There's no wrong way to do anything. But if for me, what I've observed with our band's output recording wise is that we work with different people, and we work with a collective of people who have different jobs, and we've gotten really good at utilizing other people's skills and turning it into, it's almost more like a film, making a film than it is like painting a picture, because a painter has the ultimate, you know, no one else is going to run in and grab his hand and, direct his brush in a different way. But, there's a lot of give and take. And you also have to learn how to hold your ground as an artist and say no. But you also have to open up and be willing to take people's suggestions, because they might have something in what they say because of their experience and skill.
so did you use a producer or did you produce it yourselves?
Uh,
We, yeah, go ahead.
we used David Garza was the
Okay.
producer of this record. We had some extra stuff that we had worked on after we had done the sessions that are mainly what this album is comprised of. But we added a few things. We wrote another song with another producer, John Fields, up at his studio in Minneapolis. And we came up with, actually, the first single off this album is called Rather Be Me Than You. And we did that with him. We basically wrote it and recorded most of the tracks on a weekend that we were up there, because we happened to have had a gig in Minneapolis that weekend. And we were just originally going to meet John and check out his place. And well, we ended up coming out with a song, and it was awesome. So that's the only it's the only non-David song on the record and the only song that was recorded not at Sonic Ranch. Yeah.
So it's when it's inspiration, hits, you gotta, I guess, just take advantage of it and just
Yeah, I
go it.
mean, I think that's true in all cases, whether you're working on a record currently or not. I think that, if you get an idea, that's why I love, the voice recorders on cell phones. Because, there was always these times when you'd be laying around or walking around or in a car and you get this great idea that you think is a great idea. And then, well, I'll remember that. And I used to use all kinds of devices to try to figure out how to remember something. Okay, it's similar to this melody or whatever. But now all you have to do is reach for your phone and hit your voice recorder and you can sing right into it. If you have a lyrical idea, speak into it. You don't have to write, you don't have to search for a pencil and paper.
Well, that's the great thing, right, about cell phones is now you can just record
It is
anything.
one of the things, yeah, for sure.
I remember reading about how Keith Richards had said once that he had dreamed the riff to "I Can't Get No Satisfaction," and he woke
Yeah.
up and he happened. I guess he just had a tape recorder next to his bed because that things like that might have happened all the time.
Yeah,
And if he had not
I think
recorded
I've
it,
heard that story, and I think that's yeah. He had kept a recorder nearby just for those reasons.
I actually just saw the Stones the other night in New Jersey.
Oh man, how was that?
They were great. It's I've been going to concerts since '75.
Yeah.
I saw Zeppelin, I saw all these great artists, but I never got a chance to see the Stones.
Really?
Right. Wow.
Yeah, because I was always I'm a musician, so I was always on the road, and I never got a chance to see them. And so plus the tickets were always really expensive for the
Yeah,
Stones,
yeah, yeah.
And I got two seats in the upper deck, but at front row, and I said I'm just going, and they were great. They were really good.
Mhm.
Um, it's great sound. It just a great concert. John Baptiste opened up, and he was fantastic. And
Wow.
they have a backup singer now, Shalina, I think her name is, who played Tina Turner on Broadway.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just killer. They just sounded so good. The rhythm section. I mean, everybody misses, of course, Charlie Watts and Bill Wyman, but Darryl Jones and Steve Jordan just sound great together. And so,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's
Fantastic.
80,000 people in a stadium. Just and being 80 years old and still being able to do it. I mean, how do you guys feel about that? Do you want to still keep doing it when you're
Yeah.
70, 80
I
years
think
old?
we're in really good shape right now, and age on the road and the 23 and a half hours that we're not on stage is not what I'm talking about. But when we play live, age doesn't seem to be an issue right now. It's absolutely we're fit. We sound good. We're playing great. We're listening to each other. We have the energy to keep up for 90 minutes. And these were things that I had actually worried about 4 or 5 years ago, thinking, how are we ever going to do this? How are we going to continue to do this in 100%, kind of uh, level. And well, we've been playing all year so far, and it's been really great, and we're having a lot of fun. And yeah, the age part gets a little bit difficult sitting in a van, not moving, and then having to move. Getting your sleep and getting your food is super important. And, definitely I like to party, but I'm not going to party at the kind of level that I was doing 20 years ago or 10 years ago. I couldn't possibly make it if I did that. It would be a disaster. I just cry and want to go home. And I think that, you know, especially alcohol use makes you kind of like you can get depressed if you have too much because you toxify yourself. And it affects your emotions as well as your body.
Yeah, I think there comes a time when you have to kind of make a decision that if you want to continue playing
Well, what's
music,
more important? Yeah. What's more important for sure.
right? Yeah. Yeah, and if you're doing a lot of shows, I mean, you have to make some decisions for your health so that you can continue to play.
I've in the past several years have come around to the realization that, oh, well, this is I'm in the service industry. and I'm providing a service. And like, that's all I'm out here to do. I'm not out here to do anything else. I mean, yeah, it's nice to sightsee. It's nice to go places. If I have a couple of extra days or some, I frequently add days at the end of a trip to go see things if I want. But while we have dates in front of us, it's just like, okay, we have a mission, you know. We're messengers of joy, and we have to spread joy. There's no way I can spread joy if I feel like shit.
That's right. If you're depressed, if you're in a bad mood, it kind of is obvious.
Yeah,
People, what's the matter?
right. The other
I've
guys,
been in a bad mood like that first night in St. Petersburg a couple weeks ago. The sound was so bad. It was so horrible, and it just got worse and worse. And every time I tried to, address it, it just got worse. And so, I began frowning. And by the end of the night, all these fans are like, "Oh, we're so sorry about this place and that terrible sound guy." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa! I didn't mean to turn that into, a thing." But it's apparent to me that it's apparent to people when you're not having fun, it's going to put a damper on things, and it's hard to fake it. So you want to try and be in a good mood.
I mean, sure. I mean, it could be
And
frustrating.
attitude can be adjusted by just taking care, just being mindful of it.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess in some places that you play, you're using like the house sound people. So you never know what, I mean, is that what you do? You
well,
use the house sound people?
every night we've been bringing a sound guy now, but every night is a different equation. But the thing is, you want to be as consistent as possible. And I always liken it to a play. You know, if you go see a play, what you don't want to see is the actor coming out and being like, "Fuck, I'm going through a lot. I just can't do this."
Right.
You know, like breaking down in front of you.
Right. To
You're
be or
like, I
not
want to
to
see this
be.
same show. I want to see the same show they got to see a week ago. You know, I want to see you at
Yeah.
your best. I want to see you at your best. I'm getting ripped off right now. So that's really it. Is like just be great every time. Be as good as you possibly can. Some nights you're going to be better than others. There's no avoiding it.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were talking about. I feel like, it's like that Bob Dylan song. I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now. And the fact is, we played 10 years ago. I think we were playing like old men, and we were
Yeah.
playing like, we didn't give a damn or whatever. And we are not that band now. We are a band that's like excited to be there, just as excited as we were in 1994 when we first started jamming. And another thing I really want to add this before I forget, I was noticing about how it felt today, um, in comparison with how it felt when we first started out. And I'm feeling a lot of similarities in it right now. The energy. I used to remember I couldn't wait to play. I just couldn't wait to play because I knew once I got up there, the meaning in my life would be, manifest. And it's true. People back then, we would play, and this is why we did Longview, Texas. This is why we played out in, Iowa City when nobody came. It's because every time we did come and somebody was there, people became fans right away. That's how good we were. And that's how good we've always been. We've just been real excited about what we do. And I know that every time we play now, we're playing to, it's not a giant crowd, but it's substantial enough to turn people's favorite to us, directly, and cause a word of mouth situation. And I'm grateful for that right now. It's
Well,
really,
what sparked that renewed hunger that you're talking
well,
about?
it's taken a little bit of time. It may sound like I'm talking about an instantaneous phenomenon, but it's taken us a few years, maybe about the last 6 years. We've
Mhm.
been becoming more proactive, and also more um, inventive in the way we do business. We started a Patreon a few years ago, and that's doing very well for us. It helps us take the edge off some of the expenses that we incur from doing like hiring promotional people and doing interviews. Patty set this up with you, and we
Yeah.
have to pay Patty, we have to pay our booking agent, and our manager, and everything just sort of, you know, has become productive as opposed to like, let's just go get out there and pick up the check and get our asses back home. And now we're all doing it because it's an exciting venture and it seems to never end. And I can't see an end. Um, Naturally, all good things do at some point come to an end, but I don't see it at this point.
I think it really comes down to attitude, and it's very strange, and energy. It's very hard to describe. We didn't actually sit down and ever have a meeting and say, hey, let's do this. It's just the way things go sometimes. Maybe, all of us change in a way. All of us it's happened somehow or another to change our point of view and our attitude towards the live performance. I think before it was more like, what's this going to be like? How's this show going to go? What's going to happen? If you approach it differently and you say, we're going to go in there and fucking turn this place inside out, and it doesn't matter how many people are there. That's not what it's about. It's it's like a car wash. If there's not a car in the car wash runs exactly the same. It doesn't matter. And that's where this band is at now. It's just this fucking, we go into a room, 1, 2, 3, 4, kaboom. And because you can do it. And that energy translates. And then the audience in turn gives you energy. You give them energy. It's like a trance. It's like energy. It just happens, but you have to be open. You have to be open to it. If you go in there with a set of expectations, it needs to be this, or I'm going to be upset, or it needs to be this, or why aren't there more people?
Or I
Well,
just can't if I don't have this or what.
yeah, you're going to lose. You can't approach it that way. You got to approach it like, I'm going to give you everything I got. You're the only reason I'm here. I'm going to give you everything I got. And
I've
when
always, I've always said, like I teach a lot of younger people, and I've always said, when you walk on stage, you have to think, wait till they hear me. Wait till they hear what I got for you. You have to have that attitude. Like, we're just going to blow
well,
you away. We're going to be great, and we're going to knock you out.
what I've found is freeing is to remove the expectation. I find that incredibly freeing. It's more like a torrent of
Right.
your
Okay.
giving without worrying about reaction, without worrying about, obviously, you want a great reaction. But in a way, that's kind of a trap because once you start expectation and it's then you the inner critic, boom, you've just set up the inner critic to go nuts. Oh, they didn't really like that one. Oh, yeah, you're not singing very good. You spiral down. It's got to be the opposite of that. It's got to be more like you're swimming or working out or doing something where your mind is free and you're just poof, you're just going, you're rollerblading, you're skating, you're moving. It's that free bicycle ride to me. And you're not worried about what's going to happen. You're just in it. That's it. That's the whole key. That's the whole key to playing music good is you're in it. You're not worried about anything. You're listening and reacting to
Hang
your band,
on.
the audience, all that stuff.
So basically, you're saying it's freeing not to worry about the room. I mean, because every room is different,
Live Zoom.
right? Every crowd you play to can be different, and you could be great one night and be even better the next night, but not get as good of a reaction or not make that connection as well as you did maybe because it's a different place. And not worrying about that is freeing.
There was a song we do called "The Help Machine." It's for me the most vulnerable song because there's nothing happening in the song really. It's very stark, but it's also when we do it right, it's amazing. And most of it falls on me because I got to sing it, and I'm not playing anything. I chose to do it that way just so I could really see what I could do. Most of the time, it goes over just like amazing. But I think one night on this tour, I think there was like no applause whatsoever. And I was kind of phased for a second, and then I just went on to the next song.
Yeah, there you go.
I can't do anything about that. What am I supposed to
I don't
do?
recall there not being any reaction.
See, and that's
You
another thing.
might be examining it a little too
That's
closely.
another thing, Brian. It's your own perspective. It's one's own perspective, which
Yeah.
is never gospel. It's how can you, it's just your own perception. You don't know. When we compare notes after a show, oftentimes Tony will go, "Didn't you see that guy right in front? He was doing this or that." I go, "No, I didn't see him." And it's like we're all taking in different information.
Yeah, we are.
There's no real, true, factual what happened, aside from the recording of that night.
Yeah, because I mean, I guess it would be hard sometimes if you're singing the tune to because you're so in the moment. If you're singing a tune, you're playing a tune. Kind of sometimes could be, I guess, a little harder to gauge what's going on as opposed to somebody else on the stage who's seeing what's happening because they're not singing at that particular moment. Because when
Yeah,
people sing,
singing for me definitely distorts my senses a little bit. I wouldn't say it's like I can't perceive anything, but it changes things a bit. A lot of times I'll close my eyes too. I don't know why I do that, but it's just a natural reaction. So I might not know what's going on more. I might know what's going on around us more if I'm just standing there playing bass while Miles is, singing a song or, you
right?
know.
That's what I meant. Is
Yeah, that's what I figured.
I
Yeah.
think
There
a
have
lot of
been,
people close their eyes singing sometimes because sometimes it's easier to hear pitch when your eyes are
and it
closed.
feels
Yeah.
it feels good. It's part of the trance thing I was talking about. It feels good. It feels
Yeah.
good to close your eyes and just really get into the singing. It's definitely a natural thing to do. But I have to remind myself sometimes, like, hey, people want to see your eyes open, like they want the eyes convey so much emotion, So I have to remind myself to open my eyes and look up, and all that stuff. All that stuff matters. But what's interesting is if I see video of us playing, then I realized, wow, my perception on stage is a tiny sliver of what's actually happening. I didn't know that Tony was raising his arm at this point or doing this, or the drummer was doing this or this. You see it collectively. You go, wow, look at that. That's awesome. When you're just singing, your depth of perception isn't that big. You can only see what's in front of you, and
Yeah.
you got your brain running, telling the story, right? So
And even the
it's a,
perception of time can be different on stage.
yeah,
Time seems to move much faster on
sometimes.
stage. I guess if it's not going well, I guess it could go a little slower.
Yeah, we got used to playing shorter sets. And for a while there, I was sort of dreading the 90-minute thing. Can we pull it off? And now it's not even an issue for me personally. It's like, let's go. It's time to go. We're done. I'm never like, oh my God, only two more songs. Thank God we can get out of here. It's like the opposite. It's great.
Do you do a 90-minute set straight through? Do you take a break or
Oh, we
how do
just
you
take it.
Straight through.
straight through?
And like you said, it's not even. It's not. It goes by like time is different.
It is
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
I do think that set construction is vital. Like how's the set go? Does it have a natural flow to it? Does it feel good? Because if you set this, if you write the set and rehearse it in a way that it all flows, then it really does fly by. But you could take the same set of songs and just make the worst order out of them. Like for instance, put all the exciting song, put all the hits right up front,
Front load it.
and then try to play the show, or put all
Alphabetical.
or put like seven mid-tempo numbers right together, and you'll have a very different experience. You'll be like, God, this is such a slog. Every song is on 120 BPM and it goes.
So don't you think you should start with the slowest song and then judge it by tempos and go by the time you're done, you're in the fastest song?
I mean, I don't know. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. The Pixies used to just alphabetize their set list. And
Yeah. 'Cause then you
I
get the random, but random could be bad. Random could be great, but it could be bad.
I
So
went and saw Elvis Costello one time on one tour, and I literally felt like I thought he was being sadistic. It was just all these songs we'd never heard, and they were the most boring shit you've ever. I mean, I felt like he was daring us all to just
Hmm.
leave. And he wouldn't flinch. He was just one more clunker after another. And that guy has such a fucking catalog of amazing
Well,
tunes.
his band used to have the wheel of songs.
Yeah.
They had this giant song wheel that had literally 100 songs on it, and they'd
Well,
spin that wheel, and it would be no clunkers
this
whatsoever.
wasn't one of those shows.
Oh,
This
yeah.
was him. I just felt like I was being punished for some reason. I didn't understand it.
He
It
knew
was
you were coming.
it was awful. But I saw him just recently at 38, and it was awesome. It was fantastic. He played so many great tunes of his. You know, he played Mystery Dance and did
Yeah.
Allison and
From the
did all.
first
I mean,
album.
it
Yeah.
was fantastic.
Do you have a song that you open every show with, or do you change it?
It's usually Fire Escape is
Okay.
the
The other day we opened up with something different, didn't we?
yeah, sooner or later.
Yeah.
Sometimes we open with that, but I think Fire Escape's just a better opener for some reason. I don't know.
There are
It's
some songs that are just make sense to open shows with.
Whiskey
It's
River.
super familiar to people.
It's like
That
the
song.
Stones. They start with "Start Me Up." It's a
Yeah.
perfect opening song, you know.
Not Honky Tonk Woman anymore.
Yeah, they played it. Yeah, they played
But they
all their
don't.
big hits, but they
Yeah.
also played a few songs from the new album, and the new album is really good. Have you heard the new Stones album? Pat and the
People have been
Diamonds.
telling me, but people that I don't respect their opinion.
Well,
So, well,
it's a
I
good
will now
record.
check it out.
Yeah,
I mean, it's funny because even I've read interviews with Mick Jagger where, they're playing a stadium, but he's acutely aware of like, he's like, yeah, people say they want to hear stuff like Moonlight Mile stuff. Then you go into it, you see people yawning or starting to
Yeah, that
get out
song's
and
not
go for
really.
popcorn. And he doesn't like that. He wants everyone to be riveted the whole time. So, he's like,
Yeah.
oh no, they've perfected it. I mean, they they've perfected it. Their set list is like almost perfect. You know, they're doing the big hits, but there's a few songs that, a song like Shattered, which you might not have been expecting to hear.
great. So
Plus,
good.
Ron writes it out personally every night.
He writes out the set list.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
about this big.
So now where do you do like a song like The Way, which is one of your most popular songs? Is that your final song or is that an encore?
We like to do it right before the encore, usually.
Yeah,
We know that that's going to go over like a house on fire. So it's like, it's pretty hard to follow that.
Yeah.
We've done it before, but it's like, why make this any harder than it's such a jubilant moment. It really is. Everybody
we
is
get people to sing it.
and smiling. It's such a collective. It's kind of what the musical experience is all about, where everyone feels like it's a party and they're having a great time. That song always does that. So, you don't want to play it first.
It's such a
And if
great
you don't want to
song.
play in the middle, why would you do that?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those songs where you could, and I've seen you do it, where you could just sit down at the piano and play it and sing it, and it sounds fantastic. I mean, the chord changes, the melody. I mean, it's so well written everywhere. Everything about that song is like almost perfect. I know the backstory about, the two older people um, that went on that trip, but I'm talking about the music itself, the melody and the chord changes. There's just something about it that seems timeless. It's one of
Well,
those
it's
timeless songs.
it's a combination of classical and folk influences coming together. The classical part comes in with the blend of the verse and the chorus. They're different sort of modes. The verse is all in a minor key,
Mhm.
and then it lifts up to this major happy. Like Miles said, everybody gets excited. They want to sing along. It definitely brings up the energy level, and then it'll go back down, and then it'll happen again, and then by the end of the song, it's everybody's happy. It's that's what they came for. And then there's the folk element. That folk element is the same thing. That form of that song, you can hear that in almost every kind of like European folk music. Italians say that it's Italian.
Yeah.
Spanish people say it sounds Spanish. Portuguese people think it's like a fado, because it has that kind of musical change. And all
Almost
that
like an
was,
Italian Western. That's kind of what I heard the first time I heard it.
what'd you say?
Like an Italian Western.
Oh yeah, spaghetti
Yeah.
western.
Yeah.
So I would say Ennio Morricone is a fantastic versatile composer that has done so many things, and he's still doing. I don't know. He may have passed now, but he did stuff all the way into the '90s for
Yeah.
television, for Italian television, and obviously we know Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and things like that. But he's fantastic.
So that was
And he
one of
did
your
The
influences?
Godfather too. The stuff by Carmine Coppola is, his father's a composer.
Because I hear
Frank
so
Ford
many
Coppola's
influences.
father's a
Um,
composer as well.
and speaking of your music, your new single is fantastic. I mean,
Thank you.
that song rocks.
That's me and Miles throwing together uh, body parts and making our perfect man, our perfect, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I
Morpheus.
mean, it reminded me of so many different things, but very
Yeah,
unique in its own way.
yeah. I mean, uh, it's hooky. It's real hooky.
I,
It's
you
got
know,
an
I
awesome,
was trying to
weird.
think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think the vocal melodies are really great. They're fun. They're adventurous. They're fun to sing. They're not just a monotone thing, or a simple blues form. It's power pop at its finest. I think that song. And I think that's where the power pop kind of ends on this album. Maybe there's a few moments of it, but that song is like straight up the Knack or something, and then we go into this way more expansive sound on the other songs on the record.
It's funny you mentioned the knack because I was thinking, I was trying to think of a band maybe that I could compare it to, just because sometimes people will ask, well, who does this sound like?
Yeah.
And I was thinking Rockpile. That's who that came to
Well, good
mind.
enough for me. I think they're
We're,
great.
we're
Yeah.
big fans of that.
Oh,
Speaking,
I saw them
you
at
did?
Belmont Racetrack.
Wow.
I think it was 1980. It was
Well,
Wow.
that's when they toured. Yeah.
yeah, with Pablo Cruz and Blondie,
That's
playing
an
at a racetrack.
interesting mix. That's an interesting mix.
Yeah, definitely an interesting mix. But they were such a great band, and of
You
course Steve
gonna
Evans.
do when she says goodbye.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Pablo Cruz. Yeah. Well, they had a couple of albums there that they had some major hits in the
I
late
saw
70s.
them at an outdoor, probably 79, 80. I saw them at an outdoor festival in California.
Okay.
It was a great show. They were fantastic.
So so I mean you saw a band like that at that time. So that tells me a little bit more about your influences, where
Mm.
you're from.
You're talking about going to concerts in 1975. In 1975, I was 11 years old. I was going to see the drag races down the street from where my mother still lives. It's all developed now, but there was a Orange County International Raceway. And the first real rock concert I saw was a California retro rock and roll band called Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids, and they played Chuck Berry, Little
Mm.
Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, and and then later on, a couple of years later, I'm going to see Blue Oyster Cult and Jethro Tull, and and then punk comes along, and it's all about seeing all these great bands in a small audience. And Miles and Joey, they're from Texas, and Miles will tell you about going to see all kinds of great stuff in the '80s when he's going to school.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I just watched a clip of Joe Ely playing. He's doing this song called "Are You Listening, Lucky?" and that's when I first came across Joe Ely, and he had David Grissom on guitar and Davis McClarty on the drums and Jimmy Pettit on the bass. It's just and sometimes Bobby Keys from the Stones
Yeah.
on saxophone. And man, I mean, you can watch that same clip now, it has the same impact. He's just a force of nature back then. It was incredible. But there was also, the world was so different. There were just so many good bands. It was more, I remember so vividly moving to Austin and meeting all these people that were going on tour. They were like, oh yeah, we're going on tour. Their band was doing nothing. They'd go on tour because there were so many clubs and so
Yeah.
many places to play. The world's changed. It's not like that
Mhm.
anymore. There's one or two clubs in every town, maybe. Whereas there used to be six or seven. There used to be a ton of available rooms, and it was cheaper. You didn't touring didn't cost you an arm and a leg the way it does now. It was just easier and cheaper. It was a different world.
Yeah,
And
there was so much work. I
it
mean, I used to
doesn't,
play 7 nights a week.
there was a lot
Yeah.
more work.
Yeah.
That's a fact. There
Yeah.
was a lot more work, and you can't really there's no point in trying to compare today to then. It's different. And what young people expect in terms of entertainment is radically different. Some people still like bands, and there are amazing bands. There are today. But there's also people that just go out and sing to a track. And I don't know what anyone will think of that 20, 30 years. That might just become the way it is. And it's like, wow, who was in the band? No one. It was exactly the same every single night. The only thing that varied was the singer. Maybe if he wasn't, if it wasn't lip singing or whatever, or wasn't using 8 vocal tracks underneath him. So you don't, it's a different world. And there's no point in trying to go, this is better than the other. Every generation has its thing.
Yeah, I mean, also there's so many more people, and there's a lot of bands. I think there's still the same amount of good bands. But there's a lot more regular just bands.
Yeah.
And they're all obscuring all the good bands.
Now, when you said Orange County, you meant Orange County, New Jersey? Is that where you're from?
No, California.
Oh, California. All right. Well, listen, there's a few
There's
different
so
Orange
many orange
counties.
counties. There's New York has one, I believe, too, and so does Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're originally from California then,
Yeah,
and
Yeah,
you're from
basically, yeah.
Texas.
I'm in Texas.
All right. So that's a very interesting mix of musical
Yeah, it's just like the
upbringings.
movie Civil War.
Now,
We're the Western forces.
The Western forces.
but it,
I
but it
saw
comes
that
out in
movie,
your
Miles.
music.
I
Oh,
saw that movie yesterday.
what did you think?
I loved it.
Really? We could talk
Oh,
about
yeah. I
that.
loved it. It was creepy in all the right ways.
Uh,
I thought there was plenty of action, too. I mean, it wasn't like it was just people talking about photojournalism.
all right. Well, let's get back to the issue.
My 5-second review of
Yeah.
Civil War.
Do you have? I always ask this of musicians. Do you have a favorite movie?
Civil War right
Civil
now.
War?
You know what, Brian?
I got hundreds of movies that I love, and I don't have one favorite.
One
Just
of
like
my favorite movies. This might surprise you, maybe not, but it's really interesting because I was in Portland, Oregon one time, and they were showing Cabaret, the
Ah,
movie Cabaret with
oh,
Liza
Liza
Minnelli and
Minnelli. Yeah.
Joel Grey.
Oh, great.
And
Yeah.
I went to see it, and it was really funny because, and I don't know why I have no idea why they would do this. It's just some sort of perverse thing, but I went to buy a ticket and they go, "Oh, you're the only person that's coming to see this movie, so we're not going to show it because there's not enough people." I said, "You got would just show the movie. Come on." And they go, "If you can round up one more person, we'll show it." Now, how does that make any sense? Wow, you made another $8. Like so I went into there was a bar next door. I went into the bar, there was a girl sitting at the bar by herself. I said, "Hey, will you come see a movie with me?" And she said, "Yes." And we went over and they go, "Well,
Right.
the screen projectionist left."
Oh
So
boy.
I ended up hanging out with a girl. I had a pretty good time, but then I became obsessed. I was like, I need to see this film. So I watched it and I was blown away. I was blown away by the songs. What great songs. And by the musical performances of Liza Minnelli and Joel Grey. They were just astonishing.
I,
And so that's one of my favorite films.
yeah, I saw
Still.
that when it first came out. I think it was
Right. Those are two
1973.
geniuses at the height of their careers.
Yeah, plus Bob Fosse. I mean,
Yeah,
it's the
everything. And
choreographer.
then the adaptation of the actual Bertolt Brecht music and or the lyrics and the
Yeah.
Kurt Weill music is it's amazing what they did. They updated it. So good.
And it's so dark. That's the thing I love is that it's these
Oh, it's
people ignoring
Weimar Germany.
ignoring the rise of fascism in their little.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're just out, like he says, outside the world is cold. Inside it's so hot. It's so hot. Every night it's a battle to see if we can keep the girls from taking off all their clothing.
It was the
Who
Great
knows?
Escape.
Yeah,
Like the movies itself was the great. It's always been
yeah,
the Great Escape.
it's a fantastic, fantastic film. It's one of my favorites, and it's the runtime is just perfect too. Like that's to me half of it is brevity is the soul of wit. Now you go see a movie, it's like, did you pack a lunch? It's gonna be 3.5 hours. Man,
Depends.
yeah. Can you tell a story in 96 minutes? You know, that's what I'm interested in.
I saw uh the new Mad Max movie,
Oh yeah, is that good?
Furiosa.
Yeah.
You know, it was fantastic. It was
Well, that's
insane.
cool.
Is that like 4 hours long?
Probably the most violent movie I've ever seen.
Wow.
But it's you know, it's out there. It's sci-fi. I'd rather watch that than Dune or something like that. I mean, I thought it was great. Super fun.
Man, I'm a big fan of that series, the Road Warrior, and
Yeah, yeah,
even the
I love
last one
that.
with Charlie.
It definitely it's got the same vibe as Road Warrior, which to me is the classic from the 20th century versions. But it's awesome. I recommend it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
already taken off like crazy. It's so good.
yeah, it just came out right a couple
But
of
it's
days
too
ago.
long.
It is
It
it.
is too long. 2 hours would have been great. It's 2.5 hours. I don't know why.
Sometimes in the theater, 2.5 hours isn't as bad as. I have a hard time watching a 2.5 hour movie at home. I find I can't get through it. I fall asleep.
Sure.
But in the theater, if you got some good popcorn
You
and
need to
some
get
good,
a less comfortable chair.
yeah, or not watch it so late. Let's talk about albums. How about albums? What album has influenced you the most, or maybe your favorite album of all time? Either or. Is there one?
I'd have to make a list, probably 100 strong.
Right. Okay. Well,
But
what's
you
the
know
first
what
that
we
comes to
just
mind?
mentioned? I've got a lot of records right here behind me, and you know that I'm looking right there at "In Through the Outdoor" by Led Zeppelin is a great record.
Yeah.
Um, I like everything, you know. I like that Joni Mitchell album, Spark, and what's it called?
Uh,
Park in Court.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. And Jethro Tull's "Thick as a Brick," fantastic.
Great album. Great album.
REM, I just got done studying REM's uh, for the People, Automatic for the People. I listened to it like 3 or 4 times, and I'm just like, wow. Hiding in Plain Sight from Tony Scalzo. I didn't realize how great it was. And Wildflowers by Tom Petty.
Yeah.
And, you know, Derek and the Dominoes, Layla,
I guess
Revolver.
the ones I think about for some reason, you would not know really that they've been such an influence on me. But like the Stan Getz Joe Beam album that has "Girl from Ipanema" on it,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful, and those chord changes are so interesting and unexpected. I mean, I have a lot of major sevenths in my songs, so that probably is coming from someplace like that.
Yeah, but he's doing flat nines and 13s, and
Oh,
he's
crazy, crazy
yeah.
stuff. Crazy stuff. But also the soft vocal delivery, all that stuff.
Yeah. What a
I'm
great.
really into it. And I love Mingus because it's like jazz, but it's very accessible, you know. A lot of jazz music. There's jazz records I'll listen to and I know them. That record is just so unique and it has such a unique and very accessible thing to it. It's real a very pugnacious record is how I describe it. Very digestible record. It becomes like an old friend. So that's a great album. I mean, I love all kinds of rock music. I really do, and love listening to it. But at some point though, it does become like I've listened to this too much. I don't ever need to hear this again.
Yeah.
You
That's a
know,
problem with streaming. You know, your algorithms start to like work against
yeah.
you.
Oh, I hate it. It always wants to play the same shit.
Well,
Oh,
yeah, I don't need to
like I
hear
want
this.
to hear this. I'm like, how many days in a row do I have to go off into the hinterland for you to get it? Like, I guess I got to start really
Yeah,
listening to other stuff every day for you to get it because it's always taking me back to. And the worst part is, when I work out, I listen to music, so I think that's what I want to listen to. It's like, no, I
yeah, that was
listen to
then,
that when
this
I
is
need.
now.
Yeah, I listen to that when I need to run or do something I don't want to do. That's not music for like enjoyment. That's music for motivation.
Yeah.
You know, and the algorithm doesn't know. It's just like this was your most listened to song. I'm like, yeah, jerk off. It's because I work out 4 times a week or whatever it is, and that's of course, my most listened to song. You know, it's silly.
Well, I have a series on the site, the 10 albums that changed my life, and I've had hundreds of musicians, you know, go through their albums, and it's interesting to see certain albums that appear almost on every single list. You know, we're talking, a lot of really well-known
Uh,
musicians have done this series, and you always see there's always one or two albums that you tend to see on almost everybody's
like
list.
name one of them that
Pet
you.
sounds.
I'll give you one that's very surprising. I
What?
do interview a lot of guitar players, so put that out there first.
Good.
Okay.
Kiss Alive. Kiss
Yeah,
Alive.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
We,
it comes
you,
up a lot.
It's
you know
pretty
what?
good.
I've never listened to that thing the whole way through ever.
No way. That's
No,
great.
for real.
But you have to remember, like, what age were you when you first heard an album that inspired you to become a musician? You might have been 12 years old, you might have been 13 years old. So if for a
Uh,
13-year-old, Kiss Alive was a big deal,
yeah.
you
No,
know?
we used to imitate
I
Kiss.
already I already wanted to when that record was around. When
I I
I
was
the Beatles made me want to play music for
yeah,
sure.
me too. I
Sure.
was friends though with these two girls that lived catty corner, and we used to imitate Kiss. I liked doing it with them because they had long hair. It looked more like Kiss, and they had a couch, and they'd two people would stand on the couch like it was the risers. You know, it was like we were doing that stuff when we were 10 or 11 years old. But Beatles killed Kiss for me because once I heard the Beatles, I didn't care about Kiss anymore. But
Yeah.
I thought of another album that I really love that is also in there is the Harder They Come soundtrack. That's a freaking great record with lots of unusual. I like the records. It's all aspirational. It's all records that I can't play that kind of music, but I wish I could. I can't do it with the authority, but I wish I could. But then
Yeah.
it informs your own music. That's the thing. You can glean something from it.
Yeah.
And
That's why I asked, because,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's interesting. It's interesting to hear what music inspired musicians, because then you could start to hear some of that stuff in their own music, because when I listen to your music, I hear so much different stuff. I hear so many different things.
Well,
And
we're a pretty eclectic group. I mean, the two of us love so much different kind of stuff, and we're pretty open-minded. And so we're always trying to pull stuff off. Over the years, you can learn to trust that you're never going to get too far from the shore. It's almost impossible. You're you. It's always going to sound like you.
yeah, that brings me to my point. I hear so many different things, but you guys have a unique sound. You have a very unique messenger of happiness sound. I think that's what you said. Oh, messenger of joy.
Our
You
next album is
Well,
called could be called Messengers of Happiness.
yeah.
know?
I think there's a song or an album title there, either Messengers of Joy or Messengers of Happiness.
Like Masters of Reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. You never know where an album title can come from.
I love Black Sabbath too, by the way, for sure.
Yeah. I saw them in '78. I know who the opening band was, that nobody really knew who they
Van
were.
Halen.
And
Van
Helen.
Halen. I'm
Oh,
impressed.
by the way, they're one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
they were insane.
What
Great.
a great, I'm talking about the Roth years, of course, but
Yeah.
what a great American institution made up by two Dutch guys, like
Yeah.
for real. Those guys were tremendous, tremendous. That to me is in a way the zenith of American rock and roll because you've got everything. You've got guitar wizardry and musical just virtuosity, but
Showbiz.
you've also got total showbiz with
Yeah.
Roth and
Old school informed showbiz.
old school showbiz, and like just it's well written, concise, awesome songs. They had it all, man. Van Halen, they're one of the probably one of the just the greatest bands ever to exist. They really were. It's a miracle. I
That's
love
the
that.
other album that shows up on all the top, on all
Which
the
one?
10.
Van Halen
Van,
one?
Van Halen 1. Definitely Van Halen 1. Sometimes Van
How
Halen
can
2.
you argue with that?
I
Yeah.
can't.
From beginning to end, it's airtight. Just that record rules. It really does. It's so
Have,
much fun.
have you ever heard there's some bootlegs out there of them when they played in the clubs doing
Yeah.
cover versions,
Yeah, I have.
which is real interesting to hear.
It
And
is.
and to hear, you could hear where Roth developed his showmanship,
Yeah.
because when you're a cover band, you're playing in a nightclub and you're a cover band, you have to prove yourself. You have to make sure these people have a good time because they're not coming there to see you. They're coming just to the club.
Right.
So you have to become really good at what you do in a nightclub. You have to really develop your showmanship skills, because you're really nobody yet. You know, Obviously they became huge, but when they were first starting out, they were just a club band.
If even.
And yeah,
They played everywhere. I mean, they played everything.
keg parties.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard interviews where he said we would do anything within 2.5 hours of Pasadena, we would do,
yeah,
in any direction. And then there was enough work there for them to do 5 nights a week. And he said sometimes they play Ocean Liner. They did a gig as a band on the Ocean Liner. They did quinceañeras. They did backstage parties. They do biker bars. They do it all. And they
yeah.
would adapt and learn how to. This crowd doesn't want that. This crowd wants that. Oh, we got to be a little more buttoned up and turned down for this show. It's just that what made them so incredibly versatile. I mean, God, it's really hard to think of another. There's so many great American rock bands, but to me, they're my favorite. I love them. And even though Roth, it's funny because I read a thing where that guy Chuck Klosterman ranked all the Van Halen songs, including Hagar stuff and Gary Sharon. But what was great was when Happy Trails was way up on the list, like way higher than you would think. It was like number 25 or something. And he said,
Somebody that somebody.
yeah,
How
and he
could you not
goes,
love that though?
your seventh grade choir teacher will tell you that the lead singer is somehow the third best singer in the band. But it's his joy de vivre,
Yeah.
that really wins the day.
Attitude.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's attitude, man. That's what it is. Yeah, such a great group, and it's been really fun to talk to you too about
Thank you.
all this other stuff, and I appreciate you spending time talking about
Thanks,
that
Brian.
stuff.
It was a blast.
Thank you. It's always fun.
Yeah, and if you ever come up north, man, I'm definitely gonna go see you. I'm in New York, probably could tell with
You
the
just missed
accent.
us. You just missed us.
Oh, really? You were just up here?
Yeah, we
Where
did
were you?
Mercury Lounge.
Mercury
Yeah.
Lounge, and we did Asbury Park too.
Okay.
But we'll come back. We
Yeah.
always we always go up there.
Well, I
So,
do a lot of traveling too, so maybe I can catch a show one of these days.
all right.
I'd love
Come
to
on
see your
out.
band
Yeah.
and make sure that everybody sees this, and we'll keep talking about it because it's some good stuff that you've done. And like I said, I love the new song,
Thank
and
you.
it's impressive that you guys. This is your 30th anniversary, right? You've been together 30
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you've pretty much
Summer of
continued.
'94 is when we got together.
Well, you've pretty much continued to put new music out over that 30 years. You put out, this is your ninth studio album, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got
It could
more.
have been like 15th,
It's
but
true. Yeah. We've gotten more prolific,
Yeah.
and got more. We love writing and recording, so there's no reason to stop. And writing and recording now is more accessible than it's ever been in history. It's so easy to do. I mean, you can do it in your bedroom if pressed. You could make an album in your bedroom, but it's not that much more expensive to go somewhere and go do it. It used to cost a friggin' fortune. And then to distribute it was impossible. And now you can just push a button and
You know,
there it goes. It's out all over the world. Getting people to see it is a different story, but it's available.
Yeah, redirecting their attention.
Yeah.
They've got
yeah.
so many things to pay
But
attention.
I went to, I got to go play in Japan with this, I play in this other band just on the weekend for fun on Sundays called the Resentments. And we went to play this like 4 days in Japan, and we played in one of the towns. There are people with my freaking solo record wanting me to sign it in Japan. I go, how'd you get that? They go, Amazon. It's
So
like,
now you can say I'm big in Japan
it's a
and
miracle. I
literally mean
mean,
it.
what I'm trying to say is it's a miracle. It's a
Yeah,
miracle that you can record something and
yeah,
there it is worldwide distribution, literally at the push of a button. That's something we didn't have when we started. So,
yeah. Isn't that something? And then
yeah,
depending on algorithms and a whole bunch of other stuff, when
sure.
something goes viral, forget about it.
Yeah.
And you hope sometimes something will go viral. You never know. I was at a Jets game uh, during the season when they were playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and I was with my son. And I did a little small little TikTok. All I said was, "Hey, I'm at the Jets game, but I feel like I'm at a Kansas City Chiefs game because it was all Kansas City Chiefs fans, and they were all 14, 15-year-old girls, and they were all there because Taylor Swift was there."
Taylor Swift,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Oh, wow.
yeah, and
Wow.
so I made it's like a 5-second little video, and I look like an hour later, I look and it's got 87,000 views
Wow.
because the algorithm picked up that I mentioned Taylor Swift,
Uh-huh.
and it just went out. It just went out into whatever it does, and just
Right.
got and went viral.
Yeah.
And it was a horrible video. I was sitting in my chair going, "Hey, I feel like I'm in a Kansas City Chiefs game."
87,000 people
Yeah.
saw
I mean, I've spent hours and hours trying to create art that gets 100 views,
Yeah.
and and then you
I'll
just
tell
never
you
know.
quick, funny story. The guy that plays guitar with us right now, his name is Dave Scher. He, has created all this content and he's like very frustrated and that people don't pay attention. Then he did this one stupid video about the ground lift and how the ground lift fix the buzz in his amp. And it got so much attention and all these comments like, that's dangerous. You don't
Yeah,
know what you're doing. All these comments, right? And the more comments it gets, the more the algorithm's going to push it out there.
yeah,
And so it becomes this weird thing. But those things are not, I don't think those things are good because it's usually for the wrong reasons that something gets a lot of attention,
yeah.
right? It's
You're right.
not because it's a beautiful piece of art.
Yeah, you're right. But that's just the way of the world now, you know.
Indeed.
But all you can
Thank
still
you,
do is go
brother.
out there and play, man, and keep playing and keep writing music.
Thank you.
I
it.
look forward
Will,
to all your new
thanks,
stuff.
Ryan.
All right, guys. Well, it was
Yeah,
great to talk with you, man, and
you too.
see you down the
Have a
road.
great rest of your
Okay.
day.
Yeah, you too,
All
man.
right.
Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye.